and responsibility. So we support it in every way. And I can say very comfortably that my father and perhaps even my grandfather would have said, it's cannabis, not something we foresaw, but we understand that it's honorable and it's purposeful. Let's put all our identity distinctions aside, as important as they all are, and just say, we're here. This is an interesting plant. It has interesting and God knows how many positive effects and remedies that it can offer. And let's just meet on those grounds, and then we'll find how bonded we are really as a community on so many levels. It's very important to me because I grew up at a time post-Vietnam where the country was very riven with tension. My father coming back from his last tour in 1969, that idea that wanted to get out of your uniform and keep your head down because it was such a controversial war, and all the elements of, the baby killers and whatever, those were there. Those were very true. And when I've seen how, apart from cannabis, how the society now puts politics aside, whatever you may feel about this or that foreign conflict that we found ourselves in, when we see people in uniform at the airport, in town, we have a sense of honor and gratitude for them. I mean, I really feel that, and it wasn't always the case. And in a very small way, the cannabis community manifests that same openness and welcomeness. So again, happy to be a part of it. We're still babies in the crib. We just have our one grow and manufacturing and one dispensary, but we do think that we're making a nice impression on our local community and on a wider scale, I hope.
I love that. I also asked Phillippe Cousteau if his knowledge of plant medicine had been passed down through the generations and what his grandfather may have thought of what he's doing now.
For my grandfather's generation, born in 1910, I don't think it was something that was really even came onto the people's radar until 60s, 70s. At that point, I think it had a mixed, certainly a critical reputation in the United States, but I don't know particularly what my grandfather's opinion was about it. My father passed away in 1979, 6 months before I was born, so there was no knowledge handed out from that. It was never really a thing in our household. So it's been a real learning experience for me over the last few years about this product and the power that it has. I think so many of us, having grown up in the 80s and 90s, are victims, frankly, of the pharmaceutical onslaught that came through in those decades, and the artificial foods and products and chemicals and pharmaceuticals, and just this dependence that we were all sold. When you think about, the opioid epidemic and all these other problems that we've been selling, like essentially heroin to people for decades, people are dying from left and right, but marijuana is illegal. We were victims of that popular narrative for a long time. And that changed over the last few years, and partially because as the industry became more sophisticated and it wasn't just about getting high, we started really to tap into these medicinal and therapeutic benefits that, frankly, when you look at other parts of the world, for generations, they take the marijuana plant and boil it down into like a drink to help with sleeplessness or whatever, you're like, oh, wait, so we're kind of rediscovering all of these therapeutic benefits of this amazing plant that were wrongly villainized. So it's been a revolution and a journey for us over the last few years. I'm really excited to bring it to the world.
And lastly, I asked Jacques Roosevelt, whose grandfather outlawed marijuana in the 1930s, what his ancestors might have thought of him getting involved in legal weed. And I'm going to ask it, what do you think your grandfather would think about this move? He was the man who signed the Marijuana Tax Act into law.
Yeah, he signed the Marijuana Tax Act into law, definitely. But again, he ended prohibition as well. And so I think he'd be totally supportive of this. I do think that when we look at the Marijuana Tax Act, we also have to understand the politics behind that and the fact that there were some very big families that wanted to end hemp and trying to link that from the threat that it had from an industrial standpoint into, trying to link hemp and trying to link marijuana. And I think that we've got to look at that in the context of economics and politics. And I also think that they would be open to the fact that times change. In those days, people looked at things like marijuana and drugs in a very different way. I don't think that they would be against this in any way, shape, or form, my grandparents, and I don't think my father or my uncles or anybody else would have been against this if they were still alive either.
A big thanks to this week's guests, Bob Patton of Green Meadows Farms and Dispensaries, Phillippe and Ashlyn Cousteau of SeaWeed Naturals, and Jacques Roosevelt of Lucida Club. Next week, we'll be talking to Dr. Elizabeth D'Amico of the Rand Corporation about how parents can talk to their teens and tweens about legalized marijuana.
And so in a 15-minute conversation, you're talking with them, why are you using? What do you like? What don't you like? If you keep using in this way, what might happen? And it gets them thinking about the choices they're making. There's no judgment there.
Yeah.
And what's amazing to me is in that 15 minutes, you can have a teen who's reporting how they're regularly using. And by the end, they're like, maybe I might want to cut back.
Follow us on social media at Different Leaf and at Different_Leaf. I'm on social media at Brit the British. Different Leaf the magazine is now on the shelves at more than 1,600 newsstands across the US and Canada, including at select Whole Foods and Barnes & Noble bookstores. Go to differentleaf.com to buy any of the issues or to find the nearest spot near you that sells Different Leaf the magazine. That's differentleaf.com.